What's up, everybody? This is Tim from Arm Wrestling Secrets, and in this video, we're going to be talking about the differences between beginner, amateur, and pro classes in arm wrestling.
Shoulders square, not going to stretch stick out square. Back, ready, go!
Let's go! Let's go, Tim! Go! No way! Come on, Tim! All right, everybody, welcome to the show, and let's get right into it. Okay, so we're talking about classes today, meaning beginner, amateur, and pro. Okay, and this is a question I've had on my channel. I think I've kind of answered it a little bit here and there, but I don't think I've ever really devoted an entire video to it. Okay, and this is going to be a short video, but I wanted to talk about the classifications at an arm wrestling tournament. Now, real quick, okay, now obviously there's lots of different sized arm wrestling tournaments. Okay, there's the local, like the small time tournaments that are like at your local veteran center or the local apple pie fair type tournaments, right? The small local tournaments, okay? And then there's the major tournaments, right? There's the big national tournaments and state tournaments and things like that. So there's bigger sizes. There's some that are really small. There's some that are really big. And there's some that are a lot more recognized, okay? And that's kind of where I want to start the conversation. Okay, so we're talking about different size tournaments. Okay, the only reason that matters is that the competition you're going to get is really going to change depending on the size of the competition. Okay, this is something I wanted to say at the beginning is I took part in the, as you know, recently at the North American Arm Wrestling Championship on the 16th in Las Vegas. And I remember some people were giving me some flack for competing in the amateurs. Okay, and I realized those are people that don't really know what they're talking about, okay? And that's okay because I'm not sure what their experience is, okay? But amateur does not mean beginner, okay? And the reason I started the video talking about size of tournaments and why that matters is, let's say you were going to the local Apple Pie Days fair arm wrestling tournament in just some small town somewhere, okay? You know, the amateurs there are probably not going to be like the amateurs that you're going to find at like a place like the North American Arm Wrestling Championships, okay? So just to be really clear, there's different types of amateur tournaments, okay? But the caliber that you're going to get, depending on where you go, like between amateur tournament at the North American Arm Wrestling Championship was extraordinarily competitive, okay? There was some really, really top people that had done state championships, things like that. Okay, and then if you were to do an amateur tournament, let's say at the Apple Pie Days fair, it might be a lot more like a beginner tournament, okay? But try not to get those two things confused. If you go to a major tournament, okay, the major recognized tournament, the amateurs are going to be very, very good, okay? And then you have the pro and then you have the beginner. So we'll talk about the classifications from here. Okay, beginner. Okay, so a lot of tournaments, you won't even see a beginner or novice class, okay? Those are the same exact thing, beginner, novice. If it says novice, that means beginner, okay? Beginner or novice, okay? Now, a lot of tournaments, you're not even gonna see that as a recognized class, okay? So it may not even be offered, okay? But if it is, okay, then that's, if you don't know what you're doing and you've never been in an arm wrestling tournament before, that is where you wanna start. Beginner or novice are pretty much the exact same thing. Let's move on to amateur. All right, amateur class. Okay, so this is where a lot of the confusion I think is coming from. And I understand that because, like I said, a lot of tournaments, there isn't even a beginner class. They offer a amateur and then they offer an open or pro. Okay, and you guys know what I mean. Okay, so if you are a beginner or a novice, okay, and you've never arm wrestled and you have very limited experience, a lot of times you're gonna go to a tournament where amateur is your only option. Okay, but don't go thinking that an amateur tournament means beginner. It just may be the only option you have as a beginner. Okay, so just as kind of a point in recent context, is I just went to, like I said, the North American Arm Wrestling Championships where they had amateur and then they had open and pro, but they didn't have novice and beginner. Okay, so I did meet a few people who went to that tournament who had never arm wrestled at a competition before, and they decided that was going to be their first thing, which I think is awesome, by the way. But if you want to get better, okay, that's a great way to do it, is getting in the amateur class, okay? If there's not a beginner class, the amateur class is where you would need to join. But it's going to be highly competitive at, like I said, at the really big tournaments. At the smaller tournaments, the amateur class might not be as competitive. It just depends on where you go, okay? But in terms of the way to look at amateur, beginner, and pro or open, okay, there's something interesting about arm wrestling. And if you guys don't know this, it's kind of strange because, and some of the pros out there, you're going to get a kick out of this, and you're laughing because it's a self-classification. And in many ways, okay, like so if you go to a tournament and you pay the money, they're going to ask you what class do you want to go to. So if you never went into a competition before in your entire life and you brought in $50 and you said, I want to do the pro class, and you would weigh in, you'd pay the money, and they'd let you compete in the pro, right? So you don't get some card, some pro card or something that says, I'm a pro arm wrestler, and then the pro class or open class, okay? You'll see those terms used as well, open or pro, okay? So you're gonna see beginner or novice, amateur, and then pro or open, okay? And those kind of mean the same things, okay? So when we're looking at open or pro, like I said, it's kind of a self-classification. So as you realize, just looking at me as an example, is I competed in pro and amateur at the North American Arm Wrestling Championships. At big competitions like that, I find the amateurs to be highly competitive, and I'm going to keep competing in those. As long as they're competitive to me, I'm going to keep competing in those as well. And so I do the pro competitions. In this case, now that I'm over 40, I'm doing the Masters. I'm 47 now. So pretty soon I'm going to be 50, and that would put me in the Grandmasters category, which sounds kind of crazy, makes me feel a little old, but in terms of pro competition, that's what I'm interested in, is open pro, okay? Meaning any age. I'm not looking to take on just the older guys, but then I would also probably do like the Masters, which was an open pro competition, okay? And then I also did the amateurs after that, okay? And the amateurs, like I said, is highly competitive. And so I suggest also to some of the pros, if you're doing some pro competitions, if you're doing a really small time competition, then the amateurs might not be worth your while. But if you're going to a much bigger competition and you're not really winning a lot in the pros, but you're winning a match here and there, it might be worthwhile sticking around in the amateurs and getting more experience before you just do pro all the time. Okay, so anyway, guys, I hope this classification system kind of helped clear up a few things as far as beginner, amateur, and pro in arm wrestling. And I'll see you guys in the next one. If you want to light speed your arm wrestling knowledge, supercharge your training, and start winning more matches, click on the link in the description, go to my arm wrestling coaching page, and book a session with me right now.